Hey, what's going on? I am the Dharma Guy, and you're listening to Dharma Time here on WPSN99.com, the problem-solving network, where we stream solutions. It is a beautiful Tuesday here, a little warm for my taste, but I'm also here joined with my my producer, co-host, friend, man of many talents, the Dope Doctor.
What's up?
What's going on? So today, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it.
Yeah,
because I want to leave some room at the end to talk about what we got coming up.
Okay.
We got some cool things happening.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who follow us on social media, you've probably seen a lot of it, but there's even more to come that you haven't seen yet. As a matter of fact, we'll be on the road at 5 a.m. tomorrow.
Early.
Gosh, got a 13-hour drive tomorrow. Anyways, so today's show is going to be about how to be heard and influence listening. And that's a take on the famous book, How to Be Heard and Influence People. But we're going to say, or no, How to Make Friends and Influence People, right? So our show, though, is going to be How to Be Heard and Influence People. And I think it's called for in today's time, right? I think I see a lot of that around where people are constantly trying to be heard, not feeling like they're being heard,
right?
While at the same token trying to get others to listen to them and things of that nature and have that feeling of being heard. I think, and actually, Mr. Dope Doctor over here helped me come up with the show topic. We've been so busy and had so many other things going on the ride here. I was like, I don't have a show topic yet. So
you did a couch live.
I did a couch live one, right? We're just figured out when we walk in.
Yeah.
That's how we operate best, guys.
I like it.
The cool part about that though is when this is your life and this is what you do, it's always genuine.
Oh yeah.
Because we don't have to come up with something. This is just the life that we live. So anyways, I'm going to kick this off a little bit by saying, and maybe some of you guys can relate, who knows, but I know in my life, especially in past relationships and friendships or whatever, but usually relationships, I heard this a lot. And maybe you've heard it as well.
Mm.
I would have a heated debate or a conversation, if you will. And they would say to me, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. You're not listening. And I would say to them, I am listening. I do understand. I just disagree with you.
Yeah.
And so how many times does that happen to you? Or even, if you're watching this, how many times have you been in a conversation where either you yourself felt misunderstood or you didn't think the other person was understanding you, all based on the fact that they didn't agree with you?
Oh, my God. Is that a question?
That's a question.
Oh, man. I mean, let me tell you something. It happens all the time where anytime, it feels like anytime that I'm in a conversation,
right,
where somebody really wants me to understand,
like a passionate one, not just like, what day is it?
Well, a lot of times I deal with a lot of people that are asking for help for a substance abuse problem.
Sure.
And they're trying to tell me what they cannot do to, as far as treatment wise or if they have a problem or not. And so if I disagree or if I'm giving them a different perspective, if I come from a different angle, they tend to think that I'm not hearing them or not listening to them.
You're not listening. You don't understand it.
Yeah,
you're not listening.
Like I'm not understanding. No, I understand. I just disagree.
Yeah.
Right? Just like you said. However, there's a way to do it, and I think that because that continues to happen not only in our life, at least in my life, and I know it happens in your life because we deal with people that are constantly trying to give us a perspective that is killing them.
Yes.
I think it's vital maybe to talk about it for other people because even though they may not be in conversations where the person that's giving that kind of scenario, maybe they're not about to die like some of the people that we're talking to, it's still, I think, equally as important.
Well, I mean, I get that a lot, being the fact that I do a lot of work, as you do, with people in recovery.
Right.
But because mine's a little bit more broad in a spiritual sense, I deal with individuals who aren't in recovery as well.
Right.
I deal with a lot of people who just are maybe struggling with some issues or want a different take on things. And that's I hear that a lot. They'll come to me and they'll ask me a question about something they're going through, relationship-wise, friendship-wise, life, boss, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they'll paint this whole picture, and I think in their mind, what they're wanting is just me to agree. Like they want validation. And then I'm like, okay, well, I get how you could feel that way with whatever, situation it was. But then that's when I'm like, but, there's a different way it could have been handled. And I try to give them a different perspective. And that's where they get into this whole you could be right or be happy thing.
Right.
They want to be right. They don't necessarily want to be happy. And by being right, they just want me to agree with them and say, yeah, I totally get it. You handled that perfectly.
Right.
And instead I'm thinking, you could be right, but if you want to be happy, here's another way you should handle that.
Right.
And I think that's, a lot of people, especially in today's climate, right, with the political climate.
Oh my God. Well, that's why you get that little sarcastic flip that I've said it before too. As I said, well, how's that working for you?
Yeah, I love that.
I mean,
I piss so many people off with that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just want to throw that at you. You know what I mean? I just want to throw that. How's that working for you?
Yeah.
But because it became popular, you got to find another way of saying that exact same sentence.
Right. And that can offend people at times as well.
Right.
But
well, I mean, usually if I say that, it's already because I'm kind of just it's my way of slapping you.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You know, because you can verbally smack someone around if you want to. I mean,
absolutely.
we all lose our cool. You know, and listen, I'm a counselor by trade, so in counseling, just so you know, in counseling, people talk about all subjects in a counseling session as well.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about everything. You're talking about every little detail about their life, about everything, in order to help them move forward. Period. Yeah. So, just because they may come in for one specific thing, the thing that someone comes in to get help for is not the problem. That's the symptom of what's happening in their life. So we end up talking about everything. But people only want to change, or they think they only need to change the symptom that they came in to see you for.
Or the other person's perspective.
Yeah, if everybody would just leave me alone, I wouldn't have a drug problem.
Exactly.
Or if drugs were legal, then I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't be here.
Or I'm so upset because this person said this, this, and this, and this. Right. Or they did this. Like, I couldn't tell you how many times somebody's coming at me and they're, like, really angry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why are you angry? Well, because this person did this, and I can't. Well, is that more of them or more your expectations were that? It's you. You're the reason why you're angry, not them. That person's just living their life.
Right. Well, that's why I like what we're talking about this, because when you bring it back to themselves and say, well, how are you contributing to the message? I mean, how are you packaging that message? Because what if you're packaging the message wrong? I mean, you're saying it the way maybe you would hear it.
Yeah.
Maybe you're saying it in a manner that makes sense to you. Yeah. But clearly, you're feeling that the other person isn't getting it. Okay, so what about packaging the message differently?
I think that's why, I'm not a huge fan. You've heard the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of that, to be honest with you. I hate that because to me it's more of a selfish perspective, right? Like, you're just automatically assuming that everybody views things the way you do, and they want the same things you want. So, for instance, I'm a very straight to the point, kind of a blunt individual. Mm-hmm. And so if an individual were to come to me and they were trying to tell me something, but they prefer more of the beating around the bush, I'm going to get annoyed. Like, as they're talking to me, I'm thinking in my head, would you just get to the point? Like, what's the deal here? And vice versa, right? If I'm a very blunt person, but you're more of a beat around the bush kind of person, I shouldn't come at you with the way I want to came at, because it's going to offend you. It's going to offend your sensibilities. You're going to stop listening. Right. You're going to get defensive, and my message will never get through. And so I think that is kind of the first part, right? So the show's topic is how to be heard and influence listening. Right. So how to be heard, I think that's important. I think that how to be heard is you have to speak in a way that's not offensive. Right. You have to understand that if I disagree with you about something, I'm going to probably get a little bit further by listening to what you have to say and trying to understand your perspective, as opposed to just starting out talking and nitpicking every single thing you said and telling you why you're wrong. Right?
Well, you got to read your audience. Yeah. I mean, know your audience. I mean, the people that say this is just who I am and you just have to take it. Look, if you're I'm not a religious person, but if I go to a church, I'm gonna do what the church asked me to do. So, for instance, I went to a mosque.
Oh, nice.
All right, so a Muslim gathering, right, at a mosque, or their service, I should say. I had to wash behind my ears, had to do this whole washing routine and breathe out of my nose a certain amount of times. I had to do this whole ritual before going in and sit a certain way, even though I don't even know how to sit on my knees like that, and I did it. Right. The point is that when there, respect what is there. When I went to a bat mitzvah, I had a yarmulke on. I'm not Jewish. I still put a yarmulke on. That's the kind of things that I think that level of respect is knowing your surroundings, is the listening that I think you're talking about, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, essentially, if you're trying to talk to somebody and they say you disagree on a point, right, and you start out the conversation explaining to them why that perspective is misinformed or whatever, reword it in your head and think of how it sounds. What you're really saying is you're starting out the conversation by saying, hey, excuse me, let me tell you all the reasons why you're wrong, okay?
Right.
Is anybody in the history of mankind going to respond well to that? Think about it yourself. How would you like to sit there and have an individual that disagrees with you walk up and say, hey, Bob, I'm assuming you're Bob if you're listening. Hey, Bob, nice to talk to you. I want to talk to you and let you know all the things I think you're doing wrong. I want to let you know all the things why I think your argument's stupid.
Right.
You ready? Are you going to Are you going to say to that Bob, like, oh, man, sure, that sounds awesome. Let me sit back and listen to all that. No, of course not, man.
Yeah, don't go into a church with the Jesus doesn't exist shirt on.
Yeah, you're probably not going to get a good response, right?
Go to court with a big pot leaf on your shirt and go in front of the judge. Good luck with that.
And I think that's the thing is sometimes we get so stuck in our own box, our own little world, that we forget that there's other worlds out there with other perspectives. And I did a show before about perspective. But each individual has their own background, right? They have their own thought process. They've been through their own trials and tribulations in life, and consequently, that's developed their outlook on things.
Right.
And so, you're not going to change. However, let's say they're 30 years old. You're not going to change 30 years of experience and outlook based upon one conversation to come around to your way.
Right.
That's never going to happen. And so, if your concern is to be heard, then you got to adapt. You got to say, all right, let me talk to this person in a respectful manner. And it doesn't mean that you have to lessen your argument in any sense. It just means you're going to word it in a way that's going to actually get the job done.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, what's more important? The fact that I hear myself talk, or the fact that this person understands my perspective?
Yeah, what's your real agenda?
Yeah. If your agenda is just to speak, well, then go for it.
Well, then you're doing it.
And then don't get upset when that person thinks you're an idiot and walks away.
Yeah, might as well scream goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you did it.
But if your agenda is to be heard and to be understood, then you're going to have to speak in a way and address the person in a way that they're going to want to listen to you. And that was, dude, I mean, hey, that was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn. And I still struggle at times because I'm a very blunt individual. I'm a very straightforward kind of person. And so if I'm dealing with an especially sensitive personality, that's where I struggle a lot. I struggle learning how to kind of put things in a way that isn't offensive to those individuals.
Right.
And it's not that I'm trying to be. It's just I don't see the same sensitivity. But when I find that out, my typical response isn't to yell at them. My response, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was offending you.
Right.
I try to come about a different way, mainly because my goal is to get a point across, not to just be who I am.
Right. My brother always used to tell me, "Tact, Louis, you have no tact." When I was a little kid,
Mom, if you're listening, that was me.
He just constantly drilled that in my head. He says, "You know what? You'd get further if you just had tact." And I had no clue what he meant.
Me either.
But he would always use that word on me. Tact, tact. I now know what he meant.
Yeah, and the older I get, and the more spiritual I become, and the more my my goal is happiness and enlightenment, the more I start to understand that. When I was younger, and my goal was to be right all the time, and basically go around and convincing everybody else of my perspective,
right,
and getting everybody on my team,
right.
I ran into a lot of roadblocks doing that.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But where I'm at now, I'm more of a listen first, let me figure it out, then I'll give you my response kind of a thing. And I've noticed that I've gotten further with that. And I see I see, and I think some of it is an age thing. It's a generational thing, meaning, as you grow and you get more experience. Because I have like an 18-year-old who's 18, and he's doing insane.
Oh, really? You have an 18-year-old that's 18?
Yeah.
You sure about that?
He's doing some things that are very 18, And I'm seeing some of his actions and verbiage is upsetting to some of the people around us.
Right.
I'm not quite as upset as others because I see it as 18, like it doesn't bother me.
Right.
But I'm just seeing the interaction, and it's like everybody's trying to convince the other person of why they're right. And at the end of the day, they're all on the same page, but they're fighting, and they're not agreeing on things because of just the way it's being put. And I think that's, you could also compare that to all the political stuff, right? I mean, right now, and for those of you who are listening who are not in America, we are worldwide,
or the United States.
Yeah.
Because Canada and Mexico are in America, just so you know.
That's a big thing going on right now, actually.
Yes.
But anyways, we do have listeners outside the States. So, here in the States, we have this huge divide at the moment. We have a lot of talking points and talking heads arguing about conservative beliefs and liberal beliefs, and at the end of the day, I think everybody wants the same thing. I think they all want to be happy. They want the United States to be successful. They just have different ideas on how to achieve those goals.
Right.
But to hear them talk to one another, you wouldn't think that they're on the same page. Like, you wouldn't think they want the same thing the way they're arguing. And at the end of the day, I think it really does revolve around the idea that they just can't, pontificate in a way that doesn't upset the other one. They don't know how to talk.
Well, they've attached happiness to certain principles and ideals. Without those ideals and principles, they will not be happy.
Yeah, and they've adopted this idea that I'm right and my way is the only way,
which therefore changed what they really want.
Yes, yeah. Instead of wanting to be
happy
and having the United States succeed, it's now devolved into I just want to be right, and I want to be vindicated. I want to be validated on everything I said, because at the first sign of any sort of dismay, instead of saying, "Okay, this sucks, let's reevaluate," no, it's I told you. I was right. And
for the listeners around the world, because there's listeners listening around the world, in every country that's watching right now, you've had this.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, whatever principle and ideal you believe in, and if you have a political power or a boss or an employer, whatever, or a loved one, whatever, and you believe in something, once you've lost a certain decision, you tend to back that up no matter what. So anytime that other person shows any weakness or wrongdoing, you use that as a time or an example as to why you were right in the first place. Like, you have not let it go. Exactly. You will not let it go until you get your way. So that's an example of you just haven't even, you've been on pause the whole time just wanting to speak again.
That's huge.
Never recording. Never, ever recording and listening. And I think when you talk about this subject, it's almost impossible to have it without first talking about showing up to the conversation ready to be wrong and ready to listen and ready to gather information like you said you do now. And I've seen you do it. You actually do show up very, very quiet. We go to a lot of meetings together. Yeah. And luckily, you're in a position within our relationship where they expect me to speak first anyway, which always allows you to sit back and listen first without any...
Which I prefer, by the way.
Yeah, you have no weight on you. Initially, like I don't have that luxury because they're always like, "Well, hey, Louis," and then it's like I have to guide the conversation. But I love it because knowing you're with me, I know I can guide it and take it anywhere, and I know you're soaking it in, and I have that confidence that you're soaking everything in, and you're going to see what I'm not seeing, or you're going to see what I am seeing, and you're going to know why I'm going in which direction.
Right.
And I think that's a real positive thing.
I agree.
And I think people need to learn that skill of your surroundings. And I'm going to give an example.
Okay.
Because I think it's an easy example for people to learn. If we're gonna teach them something.
Right on.
When you learn CPR, and you saw somebody, like if you walk up on somebody, and you see them on the ground and they look injured, what is the first thing you're supposed to do when you're in a first aid situation?
Ask them if they're okay.
Okay.
And assess the situation.
Look at the surround. In other words, you're supposed, before walking up on them, you're supposed to look around to make sure
it's safe. Yeah,
that it's safe for you to walk up.
Yes,
because it could be water on the ground with electrical wire in it, whatever. So you're supposed to assess visually whether it's even safe to run up.
Correct.
Right, and then as soon as you see that a person's down, you immediately call for 911.
Yes,
like have someone. So you set all that up.
Well,
first.
I mean that's. The first thing you do is you have to assess the situation,
right,
and then you assess the person.
Right.
You're not just assume that they're laying on the ground that there's something wrong with them. You have to ask them, "Are you okay?
Right.
Do you need help?
Right.
Because sometimes they might just be like taking a nap.
Yeah, they could be sleeping.
Yeah. You don't just assume anything.
Right. They'd be sitting there with a gun waiting for you to come up on.
Yeah, right. It could be a whole different situation.
I don't know what it is.
But I believe that we, as a society, we're more of a talk first, and then figure it out society. And been there, done that.
Right.
But I'm more of a listen first. Let me understand where you're trying to come from,
Right.
And I wasn't always that way, but I also had to learn from my own mistakes, and I had to learn, like when I was a kid, for instance.
Right.
What was the thing that irritated me the most? Because I didn't feel heard.
That was the problem.
Yeah,
that's why kids do what they do a lot of times.
I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel like anybody was listening to me. I felt nobody took me seriously.
Right.
And so I figured, you know what? If I want that, I'm gonna have to start giving that.
Yep.
If I want to be heard, then I'm going to have to start making other people feel heard.
Right.
Because if somebody else makes you feel heard, you're more apt to shut up and listen to them too.
Right.
And I think that's what part of it is, right? So, in my situation, I do my best to, like, if there's a dispute at the house with the kids or, someone who's a little bit older, like 18-year-olds, something happens, I don't immediately just drop the hammer. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? What happened? Or if, like, I have little ones and they fight sometimes. And they all think they're they all think they're slick. They think whoever the first one that comes out into the living room that tells on the other one is going to be the victor.
Right.
And it doesn't work when Daddy's home. When that happens, I'm like, okay, I understand that, but I'm also smart enough to realize that they're not going to do that for no reason. So what happened? Who was doing what, and what's going on? And I give each one of them their opportunity to give me their version of what took place, and I try to find a suitable response to that.
Right.
And consequently, they all feel heard. Because I didn't just take one's version of things and run with it. And I think that's what we have to do in life, man, is pump the brakes a little bit, slow down. And if you're wanting to be heard, which we all do, we all want to be heard, we all want to feel validated, you got to give that to others. Listen first and then speak. Listen to what somebody else has to say, but more importantly, listen to understand. Don't listen to wait for your moment to argue with whatever they're saying. Because we have a bad habit, and I used to do it myself. You ever been listening to somebody, and you're having a debate about something, and you're listening to everything until they say that one thing that immediately goes against whatever it is that you're fighting for, and that's all you focus on for the rest of the time that they're talking? All you hear in the background is wah, 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 wah,
100%.
Because all you're hearing is, that's not true. That's not true. Oh, I'm going to get you on this. And as soon as they're done talking, they could have even addressed that, but you didn't listen to it because all you heard was, oh, I'm going to get you on this.
Yep.
And as soon as they're done talking, your first response is, yeah, but see, that thing that you said such as, and then you start going this, like, tally, like, who's right and who's wrong. It never works. Like,
if you misspeak or you give a fact incorrectly, I see my oldest daughter and my wife do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
My wife will eventually get a fact incorrect.
Right.
And then my oldest daughter just pounces.
Yeah, and just jumps all over.
And I tell my wife all the time, I said, see, that's why you got to stick to the facts and you got to stick to the point. I said, as soon as you start bringing up the past and then saying things that, you're trying to fight a battle that you lost 2 weeks ago, that she disagreed with you 2 weeks ago, and you never proved correct, now she's got you.
Yeah.
Because now she's going to use this new battle as a continuation rather than this is an entire different deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens all the time.
All the time.
And I think that's when things start to devolve, and I think that's where we're at right now as a society is, once again, what is your agenda? Is your agenda just to be right, or are you trying to be happy?
Right.
What outcome are you looking for? If your outcome is simply just to be heard and be that person who's just poking people, well, then, you're probably doing it right and go for it. But as we said at the top of the hour, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
Are you getting what you want? Do you feel happy? Do you feel fulfilled every day?
Yeah, if you're just thrilled by being obnoxious.
Yeah, then you know what? Good for you. Go for it. But if you're not, if you feel that there's conflict that you would prefer, there wouldn't be.
Right.
If you're not feeling heard, if you're not feeling validated, if you're not getting the results that you're looking for, well, instead of blaming other people, look inward and say, all right, maybe is it how I'm coming into the situation? Am I a right fighter? Right. Am I trying to be right all the time? And
the whole world can't be wrong.
Exactly.
If you're feeling like nobody gets you,
the
whole
wants
world
to be around that, dude.
It's because it could be that your entire packaging, is just wrong. Yeah. Maybe you're wrong. It's okay. You're allowed to change direction. Yeah. You know what? How many times have you been on a road that has 3 lanes, and you have to change lanes?
Yeah.
You just have to. There's people that ride in the fast lane here in the United States that are going lower than the speed limit.
Yes.
You're allowed to move over.
Yes.
Also, if I'm in the fast lane and I come up on you, there was a day where that would make me so upset that I would stay right behind you so you know. And then if I did pass you, I would cut you off, letting you know that you're in the wrong lane.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, that is not the case. Let me change that. On a good day, that's not the case.
It's been
on
lessened.
A bad day, that still happens.
Sure.
It's a lot lessened. But on a good day, I don't care what lane you're in. I know that I have the ability to change lanes. And that's a freedom and a choice and a sense of control that is a lot more liberating than being correct.
I agree. And I find out that I learn more when I'm not correct.
Right.
You know, like,
Right.
what is it? Sports teams, they don't learn anything by winning all the time.
Right.
You know, it's when you get beaten that you have to go back and say, okay, what did I do wrong here? You know, they don't go back and say, well, this team was wrong.
Yeah.
No, we did something wrong.
No, not even only that. Trinity, you and I both love sports, right?
Yes.
How many times, like in NASCAR, we got this NASCAR deal going on, right?
Yes.
We got these race cars.
All Out Motorsports, Corbin Forrester.
The truck can be in first place. The car can be in first place. Yet, when it comes to the pits, they still change it a little bit to keep up with the track a little bit more. Why?
Yes.
Because conditions change.
Yes.
And so if you're an athlete and you go into the huddle and your coach goes, everything you're doing is correct, just keep doing what you're doing. No, because conditions change.
Yes.
The other team is going to change depending on what you did. So therefore, you have to anticipate those changes will continue. So it's not just, stop doing the same thing, expecting different results. That's the definition of an insanity. But even when you're winning, you have to be prepared to alter, because a winning move may not always be a winning move.
Yeah, you got to maintain winning.
Correct.
And that's life, right? Like, I don't know about you, but when I go talk to people, they didn't get the playbook. You know what I mean? They don't know what's about to happen. They have their own version of what's about to happen.
Right.
And it doesn't always line up with what my version is going to be.
Right.
And
they don't know how great you are, Trinity.
Yeah, right? Like, come on, guys.
The same line that worked for Bob yesterday doesn't work for Cindy today.
Exactly.
But Bob was real inspired by that yesterday. Cindy,
yeah.
Why don't you just want to follow what I'm telling you?
Exactly. But that's why, like, for instance, when I do like groups and stuff, right? I have a basic format of how I go about things,
right?
But I do my best to keep it relatively fluid because I have different people in there.
That's
and
right.
as you pointed out, what worked in a group at at Tropical years ago, and I'm sitting there talking to them with that room of personalities, the rapport that I've already built, this works.
Read the room.
But if I go to back when I was at another facility and I go in there and it's a whole new group on a different day, different afternoon, years later, it's still good quality stuff. But it might not work on them because they have different backgrounds, different personalities. I have a different rapport with them. And so I can get the same message across by using different words or different mannerisms or different stories.
And the teaching that is often misunderstood so much, Trinity, that you have to address.
What's that?
Is the teaching of you just have to be true to yourself. The problem with that is people are only usually thinking about one aspect of themselves and not realizing how diverse they really are.
Well, they misinterpret
I am more than
behaviors.
one personality.
Yeah.
I am more than one person. So there are many sides to me. There's a side of me that can be at a church, and there's a side of me that can be at a street party, and that's still me. I'm still being true to me. There's a side of me that can be with my parents who I don't curse at all with, and there's a side of me that can be at a rowdy bar where the F word comes out of my mouth every 2 seconds. I'm still being real to me. There's different levels of who I am.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that a lot. Actually, is like especially doing counseling for like the younger groups and stuff,
right? When
they're still trying to find themselves.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, that's just who I am. Is it, or is that who you learn to be?
Yeah.
Like, were you really at like 2 years old? Were you running around barking at everybody, yelling, and standing up for yourself and pounding your chest? Because I don't think so.
And you're not running around naked. You're allowed to change your clothes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I think you learn to be that.
That does so much.
Yeah. And just like you learn to be that, you can learn to be something else. Like, it's not who you are. It's just your behaviors. It's how you're behaving towards others. And once again, I think a lot of that comes down to what is your goal?
Yeah.
And that's why my favorite phrase I say all the time is you can be right or you can be happy.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to be right, that is exhausting.
Yeah.
I can tell you somebody who used to be right, I'm going to tell you the right thing. I used to want to be right. Y'all can have it.
Yeah.
I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Hey, if right just so happens along my path, I'm going to appreciate it. But that is, you can have right, because right is exhausting, and there's always another right.
You know what? And I'm going to steal what you said earlier when you were talking about a pit bull doesn't need to bark, or what did you say? A pit bull doesn't need to bite or show its teeth.
Oh, about the guy who was on the thing. Yeah, I said
the guy that was talking
a pit bull doesn't need to prove to you it's a pit bull.
Okay, so if you're right, you don't need to be validated. If you really know you're right, you can be silent.
Yeah. Like
let the other person hear their wrongness.
Well, that's a cool.
They're going to hear it from themselves before they hear it from you.
Well, the cool thing about the truth is true whether you believe it or not.
Truth is truth.
Yeah, so you can disbelieve all you want, but
good luck with that.
You'll see.
Let people go bump their heads.
Exactly. But the being right thing is just, it's exhausting, man. It's so exhausting. And the problem with being right is even when you are right, it doesn't last, man. That's the rule number one for Buddhism here in spirituality is impermanent. And no matter how good it is to be right, it lasts for a few seconds, and guess what? There's another one right behind it.
I think the problem is that conflict has so many pleasure impulses per second attached to it.
Yeah.
There's so much of a high attached with conflict.
Oh, I love conflict.
It feels so good.
I used to run towards it, not from it.
I think that's the issue. I mean, if your life is struggling a little bit, and maybe it's a little boring or it's missing something, right? And sometimes people feel that void, not just with alcohol or drugs, but sometimes they like filling it with conflict.
Yeah.
And that conflict is what's sustaining them and having them live another day.
Well,
but recognize it then.
When you start to bring the emotions into it, I think that's where things start to take a turn as well.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that I've met in my life and dealt with. It's when they emotionally attach their happiness to a specific outcome. And they, for whatever reason, they've got this mindset that if you don't agree with me or if you don't see things my way, it's going to affect my happiness.
Yep.
And that's just not true. Once again, if it's the truth for you, then that's your truth. Live it. It doesn't matter what somebody else thinks. But when you start getting emotional, you start attaching that emotion to a specific outcome, man, you've already started down the path that's not going to be good for you.
Exactly.
And the emotional reaction is not going to typically lead to a happy resolution.
Right.
It's just not. Now, when you do a response, that's why I think the difference between react and respond, react is emotional and just going to blurt the first thing that comes in my head.
Right.
There was a response is I'm going to listen to what you had to say. I'm going to try to understand where you're coming from, how that relates to what I'm trying to say, and find, some sort of a common ground there.
Yeah.
And that's usually where it ends a lot better. And when I say a lot better, you might not necessarily agree even at the end of that. But there's a difference between disagreeing and fighting and disagreeing and walking away like, you know what, I respect that person. We just don't agree on everything.
Yeah, and all that is art of war. All that is fighting principles as far as response, whether to react and being able to walk away and come back another time and all that stuff. Look, there's a lot to be said with the lessons that have been learned before.
Oh, yeah.
Philosophy is much older than you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Even though I feel old, it's definitely older.
So why, if philosophy is so old and it's been there forever,
right?
Why wouldn't you just try to use a little of it that has already been said and already been done? Because everything's been said, everything's been done, everything's been thought pretty much.
Yeah.
Except, electronics. That kind of stuff does evolve. But philosophy, there's nothing philosophically that hasn't been said, thought, or done. So attach and find one that can best maybe map it out, because maybe through your emotion, it's just not mapped out right.
Yeah.
So you're going about the messaging all wrong because you're in your emotion.
Yeah, I think, you just touched on something I thought was actually interesting, and we said it earlier, but...
Are you running out of battery?
No.
Oh, okay.
My buddy kind of said something to me a while back, and it stuck with me. And you mentioned it earlier in the show, and I've said it in previous areas of my life in various different ways, but it all kind of means the same, and that is, he says he likes to approach every situation like he doesn't know anything. Right. I don't know anything. I don't know the answer. Let me just figure it out as I go. And there's something to that, right? Like you said, you got to be willing to be wrong. And then in other ways it's been said is be smart enough to know what you don't know. Right. And what made me think of that was once again, my 18-year-old's just making 18-year-old decisions at the moment. It's just, stuff. Right. Well, we got a 13-year-old. She's soon to be 14 in a couple weeks, and she's watching a lot of this go down. Right. And I was talking to her, and I was like, look, you don't agree with some of this stuff. Okay. Well, what are you doing to make sure that doesn't happen? What do you mean? Like, she never thought about that. And I told her, I says, you've got to think of these types of situations because that's where wisdom comes from. As you start to watch some of these, what you feel to be mistakes. Right. I'm not going to say they aren't. To each their own. I don't know what kind of life he wants for himself. So she views it as mistakes in her mind. So, okay, so you viewed it as a mistake, but he's guilty of not knowing what he doesn't know. He's guilty of not following it through in his mind of where this next step is going to take him to and realizing he's not necessarily prepared for certain things. So what are you doing to prepare yourself for him? What are you doing differently? And I think that is one of the traps is we don't know what we don't know. Right. We think that our perspective, we have it all mapped out. We know everything. And then the problem is there's another perspective out there that has something completely different to add.
Right.
And that changes the whole game of things. But if you're not willing to listen to that, it's going to crash. It's going to crash hard. And I know for me, I view myself as a smart guy. I view myself, I mean, I had that 4.0 all the way through school and had scholarships, all sorts of stuff. But there's been many humbling moments in my life. And I was that guy where I didn't listen to anything. I thought I had it all figured out. Matter of fact, that's how I found spirituality. I found spirituality at 21 years old. I bought a house making over 60 grand. Had motorcycles paid for. I was living the life. Y'all couldn't tell me anything. Like, what? I have it all figured out.
Right.
It wasn't until life started kind of throwing me some roadblocks that I wasn't prepared for, and I didn't know how to bob and weave anymore. It was affecting me. Right. That I started to realize, man, all these people around me that were saying things, they all kind of had a point. Right. A lot of them were older than me, and they were trying to just give me some advice to tell me, like, hey, man, that's cool and all, but this, and this. And I was always like, yeah, whatever, that's for you. Like, you don't get it. Yeah, they did. I'm the one who didn't get it. I didn't listen. Right. I didn't realize that, hold on, y'all been through this path before. I'm not necessarily saying we're the same person, but it warrants at least listening. Because maybe you're offering something that I will experience. Who knows? Right. I wasn't smart enough to know what I didn't know. And I think that's part of the being heard is you have to walk into every single conversation being smart enough to realize you don't know everything.
That's right.
That person has a whole life, a whole history, a whole perspective, a whole outlook that is completely different than yours.
Right.
Maybe somewhere in there's a grain of truth that you're not seeing. Be smart enough to listen to find that grain. Don't listen to find where you disagree. Don't listen to find where they're wrong. Listen to find that one thing that, like, oh, wow, I didn't think of it that way. Right. That's interesting. Right. You start doing that, you'll notice a whole change in all your interactions. If you start trying to find truth in what the person's saying, you'll have a whole different response from people.
Right.
And you'll be more likely to be heard.
Right.
And in return, they're more likely to listen to you as well.
Right. And in speaking of that, it reminds me of when I was a kid. I thought
that was a long time ago.
40-something years ago. It was pushed down my throat that intelligence was based on finances or status. Like if you're a doctor, lawyer, or if you're making a lot of money. That's an intelligent person.
Okay.
Right? But I remember specifically the college course even, and it was Eastern Humanities, so it was learning spirituality, where when I learned about Buddhism and learned about true wisdom, and it was the wisdom was actually not knowing that you don't know.
Yeah.
That is when my mind was blown.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Because that class was probably my favorite class ever, as far as for mind expansion. Because it allowed me to know this is why this is why I enjoy everyone being my teacher. In other words, instead of fighting every teacher, that is the other teacher, the teacher that wants you to be this profession, or the teacher that is making it about finances or something like that, or about a grade. That's why that bothered me. And I enjoy the other teachers, like the bums on the street or the old man on the corner, or whatever. But it let me understand they're all teachers. Yeah. So let them all be teachers, and let them all feel whatever value they feel in whatever they're saying, because you're allowed to have a teacher for different things and it not necessarily translate into everything else. So your financial advisor doesn't have to be your marital advisor kind of principle and idea. You know what I'm saying? So I think that was a real good thing to understand. And like you said, walk into every situation knowing that I don't know. I love walking into a situation and knowing from this I'm going to gather something new. Oh, yeah. And if I don't gather something new, I feel like I missed something.
I feel like it's my fault.
Because if I've already known everything walking in, then why aren't I in nirvana now then?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And since even though I'm a very happy person, I'm assuming that nirvana is a completely different kind of happiness that I'm not there, right?
Well, in Buddhism, we define that as just a lack of suffering, period.
Right. So, and I still suffer a little bit. Clearly from the food poisoning, I was still suffering.
That sucks.
I wouldn't have eaten that chili if I would have known everything. I would have been able to look at that chili and knew that it had poison in it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
And I didn't know that it had poison in it. So, anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. I think that, in spirituality, one of the things that they talk about in what is that?
I think it's the sound here. Hold on.
One of the things in the spiritual world, right, in Buddhism is community. right? And
Right.
in community, you're supposed to find
Right.
people who are further along the path.
Yeah.
That would be our mentors. That would be the people who kind of help give us purpose and help guide us and help us with the things that we don't yet understand.
Right.
And then you're supposed to find people who are not as far along the path as you are.
Right.
And everybody's first thought is to pay it forward, right? To find people who aren't as far to be their mentors. No, those are the ones who teach us.
Right.
The ones who aren't as far along the path, they're the ones that teach us by the questions that they ask and the mistakes that they make.
Right.
You know, when I see, like for instance, when I see my young ones making certain mistakes, I learn from that. I say to myself, am I doing those same things, just on a bigger scale? Yeah, a lot of times I am. A lot of times I'm just as nearsighted, or I'm just as stuck on my own thinking as they are.
Right.
And so that's where we get our teaching from. You know, my kids have taught me more than I'll ever teach them.
Yeah.
Just by watching them and seeing their interactions, it makes me stop and think like, oh man, wow, that is so cool. Or man, I need to stop doing that myself.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Not to mention, just my interactions with them tells me where I need to grow still.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's part of it, man. That's part of being an influencer, or part of being heard, is legitimately hearing other people.
Right.
You got to give it to get it, man. And I think that's a key point that we always forget. We get so fixated on how do I get my point across? How do I get heard? That we forget to first be a listener.
Right.
And I think that's where the magic is. I really do.
Is there any teaching that you remember in school that ever taught us listening, other than listen? Like teachers yelling, listening. Like,
wow, that's a good question.
Where do we develop that? You think? Where do we really develop, and when do we really develop those skills? You think, Trinity? For the people that have little kids, like how can they better prepare their little kids?
I think, well, in school they don't really teach it that I'm aware of. I think where you used to get a lot of that is in college, but I think even with college it's starting to kind of go by the wayside. I think colleges are starting to become less tolerant to different perspectives, and it's becoming more political, and they're trying not to step on toes.
Did you say college has become less political?
More political, less tolerant of political views.
I'm sorry, I misheard.
So I think that. Man, I don't think there really is a place. I think it's left up to us, and I think that the lucky ones have people in their lives that are able to impart that wisdom on them, and are given that instinctual drive to go work on themselves intrinsically. I think the unlucky ones are in a home where maybe the parents either don't have those skills or are too busy trying to make a living, and they're left to kind of fend for themselves, and they're the ones who are left to learn through the school of hard knocks. They're the ones that are going to have to go through a lot of drama to learn from it. And the sad part is some people don't.
You're right.
So like what I do with my kids is I try to be that person. I try to humble myself to realize that, first of all, I don't know everything. Second of all, like one of the biggest things I do with my kids, I don't try to make decisions for them. This is just my steps and how I do it. I try not to make decisions for them. I try not to think I know what their life is going to be like and what they want out of life. Instead, I just try to give them information.
Right.
That's my main goal right now.
Sure.
And no matter what age, my information changes, of course. Obviously, for the little ones, like the 6-year-old, 7-year-old, I've got to do a little bit more hands-on. But like for the soon-to-be 14-year-old and the 18-year-old, I'll use the 18-year-old as an example. Once again, there's things that are happening at the moment. And I just sent a text message the other day, and I was like, look, I'm just trying to, you want to talk and converse about what's going on here, and let me kind of figure out where your head's at, by all means. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm not trying to dictate to you how to live your life. I'm somebody who's older than you, who's been through a lot of things, has a little bit of wisdom to impart. And if you want to hear some different options, come talk to me. And that's kind of where I'm leaving it,
Sure.
And if and when the day comes where we sit down and talk, my main thing is I'm going to listen. And I want to know where his headspace is at. That's it. Like I'm not trying to talk to him to tell him what I think he's doing wrong or right. My whole goal is I just want to talk to him to understand his logic, where he's coming from, and why he's making the decisions that he's making. And then my next step is to say, okay, well, here's some other options that can kind of get you to that same goal. And just give him all the data that I have, give him all the information, and then allow him to make his decision with more information, essentially.
Right. I think you're answering it. I think you're saying that Yeah, we've said it. Practice what you preach, kind of deal.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying. I think you show listening, but actually, no matter at what age your kid is, whether they're an infant or whether they're a teenager that's giving you ridiculous information,
no matter how wrong you think they are,
no matter how wrong listen to them.
Well, and you know what? In this situation,
like active listening.
Yes. There's aspects to what's going on that I don't agree with, of course.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain things that are taking place that I think are bad decisions or whatever.
Right.
But a couple things I have to keep in mind is I'm never going to influence them by coming and telling them that.
Right.
Number two, I have to understand that those are bad decisions based upon what I want out of life.
Right.
He's got his own life that he's building, so I don't know what he wants out of life.
Yeah.
And so when I talk to him, no matter how wrong I think he is, there's going to be some truth in there that even I didn't think of.
Yeah, for real.
He's going to have a perspective. He's going to have justifications for everything that's going on. And who am I to just throw those away? Like, they're true to him.
Yeah.
Whether I believe it or not, it doesn't matter. And so when I talk to him, my goal is just to let him know I understand, man. I get it. Like, I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
And I'm not telling you not to do those things. I'm just saying that doing those things might not give you the reward that you're looking for.
Right.
It may or may not. I don't know. But here's another way that's more likely to get you that same reward.
Right.
Up to you to do what you want, but at least now you've been told.
Right.
Up to you to make that decision. And I think that's what we all need to do more of.
Well, and the other thing is when you are listening to them, Trinity, can you show us, at least for the people that'll watch this on later programming,
Sure,
or are watching it up live, show us what a face is like when you're not really listening.
When you're not really listening?
Yeah, show us the face of what it's not. So for those of you that are not watching this and you're only listening to it on radio, Trinity's going to show us the I'm not really listening face. Go ahead. Okay, that's one.
It's playing on my phone.
Yeah. What's another one? Now look at the person.
Oh, look at the person.
Yeah, look at the person and show them not listening. But look at in this camera because this is the one that's going to look at him and.
Yeah, that's not listening.
Now, what's a listening? What's an example of active listening or supportive listening to like your
Looking at the
teenager or your
camera.
kid?
Oh, okay. It's active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Another one I like to do is, I think they call it, was it parroting in the business? Where I repeat it back to them.
So you repeat
So what you meant to say,
Yeah.
what you're trying to say is this. Am I understanding you correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that, active listening.
What I hear you say.
Yeah.
Because that try word in counseling.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I think that is a big thing that people don't seem to know how to do these days.
Right.
Is active listening.
Yeah.
Active listening doesn't mean just sit there and say nothing and stare at me.
Yeah. It'll just be
Give me some feedback.
Yeah, you look nuts.
Just be like, oh, okay,
Which
nod your head.
Yeah.
Do something that makes me feel like I'm talking to a human being, not a wall.
Right.
And one of the biggest ones though is repeating it back to them.
Yeah.
Because you could very easily misinterpret something.
Just to make sure you got it right.
Yeah. What you say and what the other person hears can oftentimes be very, very different.
Right.
So I absolutely believe that active listening is important.
And
with my little ones, I read a long time ago to go to their level.
Yeah.
So when my little ones talk to me, I squat down
Right.
and go face to face with them. I don't keep standing up and talking down.
Yeah.
So I try to go to their level. That way they feel like
Right.
they're being heard.
I agree with that. And sarcasm is only good when you really don't give a damn and you want to argue or you're having fun.
Yeah.
But when you're having a serious conversation,
sarcasm
doesn't have doesn't have a.
It's hard for me sometimes because I'm a very sarcastic individual.
And I am too, and that's why that is my issue. My issue is
same here.
My issue is sarcasm is so easily like the sarcastic comment is always at the tip of my tongue.
Oh yeah, it's always locked and loaded.
That I have to like. Not yet. Not yet. Not right now. And sometimes I read it wrong. I think I could throw a joke, or my sense of humor and the other person's sense of humor may not always be the same.
Dude, I have a house full of sensitive people.
Yeah.
And I am always apologizing for something because it's not my way. But it is what it is, man. I love them for who they are.
Apologize, hell. I just say whatever. Yeah. I didn't mean it that way.
That sometimes works.
Hey, if you think that's what I said, hey, I apologize for that.
I'm responsible for what I said, not what you heard.
Here's what I apologize. Yeah. I apologize that I gave you any form of genetics that had you believe that. No,
right.
Not really. not giving you perfect genetics. I apologize.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and let me do
It's already that time.
It is, man. Let me do my three things. I want to leave a couple minutes because talk about what we got coming up.
Okay, all right.
So let me do my three things here, because once again, I don't like to just pontificate on things for an hour and walk away from. I want you guys to actually walk away with some sort of action plan, if you will. So I like to do these little 3 tips, 3 things to actually apply what we've talked about today. So the first one I have here is want to be heard. You got to speak facts. Don't attack their facts. So try to speak the facts. Try to speak what's going on. Don't spend your time attacking their facts or their perspective, their way of doing things. The second one this is like a twofold one, is practice what you preach, meaning you got to listen first. Don't just go around telling everybody how they got to listen to you and they've got to listen to this and listen, but you're not listening to them. So you got to actually do it. You can't just talk about it and expect others to do it to you. You've got to do it for them. And then the final one is somebody disagreeing with you doesn't mean they weren't listening to you. It's possible to hear somebody, listen to them, understand what's happening, and completely disagree. And that doesn't mean that they weren't listening. That doesn't mean you need to re-explain it in a different way
Oh my God.
It just means you guys just don't have the same opinion on it. That's all that means.
I don't need it louder, and I don't need it twice.
And we're all guilty of that, man.
You don't need to wake me up later and tell me again.
Oh, that sounded personal.
I did on purpose.
All right, so that would be the 3 things. So, you got to practice what you preach. You got to be heard. You got to start off by listening, and you got to understand just because they disagree doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't hear you. So, having said that, let me also quickly thank the sponsors. We have, of course, Journey Pure, which we'll see them actually this weekend. Some of them. We have Retreat Premier Addiction Treatment Centers, which is another fantabulous place. We have Orange County Drug Free Coalition. And then we have the NowMattersMore.org, which is our foundation, which helps individuals struggling with the disease of addiction, whether it be scholarshiping some treatment, or just simply pointing you in the right direction and helping you navigate that system. That's what we're here for. And you can reach us by 833-NOW-MATTERS, or you can visit us I said that. Ooh.
Oh, you did.
NowMatters.org.
Old man.
I hate that. I know, right?
It's the gray hairs on your beard.
See what we do here. Anyway, so having said that, we got a lot of stuff coming up. Us here at Surf Monkey Media, as well as Now Matters More Foundation, because we're multifaceted here. We've teamed up with All Out Motorsports and the number 7 Corbin Forester for the.
You got the hat on.
I do have the hat on. At the Camping Truck World Series, or no, not World
Camping
Series.
World.
Camping World Truck Series for NASCAR. I'm still new to the NASCAR. I'm learning all the vernacular here. But we were at the. You were with Daryl at the Charlotte race. We had Journey Home and Journey Pure, I believe, also at the Texas race. Mm-hmm. I was at the Chicagoland race. Mm-hmm. And then we were supporting some other individuals. We were actually just at the Daytona race here, the Xfinity Cup.
Right.
But him and I both will be up in Kentucky with Hillbilly Stills, watching Corbin Forester race at Kentucky Speedway.
And Journey Pure and
Journey Pure will be there as well.
Members of Ford Motor Company, even though we're in a Toyota.
Yes. And so you can follow us if you want to watch our shenanigans. You can follow us both at our Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. He is at The Dope Doctor, and I am at The Dharma Guy.
And on UpLive.
And on UpLive as well. So if you don't have UpLive, you can download that. You can watch the whole thing. We will be broadcasting and just having a blast. Just trying to do good work, man, and support good people. So you'll see a lot of that coming up with what we're doing. Very, very excited about that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, man. But the big thing is our number, 833-NOW-MATTERS. If you or anybody you know struggling, there's no need for that. Call, get some help. That's what we're here for.
And the second biggest thing is, what vehicle are we actually going to take? I mean, what vehicle are we
Well, you were just working on that, right? They tried to put us in a Yaris, people. My wife has a 2-door Yaris, and that is like, I got to unzip that thing to get it off, dude. It's like a leotard for me.
I want the Challenger, man.
I'm cool with the Challenger.
I want the Challenger. I think we're going to get the Challenger, Trinity.
We got a 13-hour drive, guys.
14.
It's a 14. No,
it's right near Cincinnati. It's right below Cincinnati.
It's going to be a long drive. You're going to see a lot of us, I'm sure, on social media. So,
right.
Very, very excited, though. Looking forward to that, and glad to be teamed up with them. Corbin's a good kid. Corbin's a good kid. Their whole family's awesome. We're very grateful that we were able to team up with them. And just excited, man. I'm excited to see what's coming, you know.
And how cool it is that this, here we're supporting this kid that came from bootleggers, and we're bringing them hillbilly stills.
Yeah, man.
People that make stills.
Well, and you know,
and we're a foundation that helps people get sober. How
cool
is that?
Exactly. Well, and to make it kind of full circle with today's topic, even.
Yeah.
That's how I became NASCAR. Like that's how I got into it further, is just listening. Mm-hmm. I spent so much at the Chicagoland race. I didn't walk in the door thinking to myself, dumb redneck sport, whatever. I don't want to watch this crap. I don't know anything about it. Just turn in circles, turn left.
Right.
I didn't go in there thinking that. I went in there thinking There's millions of people that love this dang sport.
Right.
Why? Let me figure out what this is all about. And I went in. I talked to Corbin. I talked to his mom. I talked to his dad. I talked to the whole crew, the crew chief, the engineer, all those people. I got an interview, actually, if you watch it on my social media. I talked to other drivers.
Claire B. Lang.
I talked to Claire B. Lang. I talked to so many different people, and I just wanted to absorb. And I went to the autograph sessions. And I watched all that. I saw the little kids excited to get the autographs, and I just absorbed, man. I just listened. And I saw how what this sport means to so many people. And I saw just the excitement. I saw how much goes into each one of the races. And had I walked in there thinking to myself that this is a dumb race and only going left, that's all I would have seen.
Yeah.
But because I went in there saying, all right, well, let me find the truth in here. Let me see what it's all about. I saw that.
For real.
And that's the thing, is you find what you're looking for. And so if you go in there and you try to find, common ground, you're more likely to find it.
Right.
And I did, and I am, gosh darn it, I'm a NASCAR fan.
Gosh darn it, you said.
Gosh darn it. I wanted to say something else.
Now you're even talking different.
I wanted to say something else, but we are on radio. I am a NASCAR fan. I got bitten by the bug.
You said, "Gosh darn it."
I wanted to say something, but I'm grateful. I'm happy. I think we got a good team, and I think that's what helped it. So, anyways,
hellfire!
You whippersnappers, get off my lawn! Oh god, I already got the grade for it, right?
Oh,
anyways, I think you got everything queued up, man. You ready for us?
Yeah, I'm ready for you, man.
Right on. So that's it for us today here on Dharma Time. Make sure you tune in later on. Coming up next is Recovery Radio. And, of course, check out our other shows on WPSN99.com. You got The Couch Live. You got the Lemon Squeeze. So check us out. We're doing good things. And now that you know better, be better. Till next time, peace.
I think he plans it all out. Just makes it up as he goes along.
Human knowledge belongs to the world.